Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the official Do Good Better podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Kirby. And of course, we talk with people who are going to help our small and medium-sized nonprofits do good better. And I have been saying for the very longest time that every small, medium-sized nonprofit is just one great letter, great influencer away from having their story told to way more people than they've ever imagined. And I also said, and again, we talk about this all the time, you do great things. So we should probably let other people know about how great of things that we do, but maybe we need a little bigger microphone. Maybe we need a megaphone. Maybe we need somebody who has been in the entertainment industry, maybe somebody to give us a little pointers on where to find these individuals and how to leverage really everybody who loves you. I have a fantastic guest today, and I'm actually kind of freaking out about it because it's our first actual Grammy nominated guest. Talk about that as teaser for that. I'm super excited to welcome Paul Katz. He is the CEO of Entertain Impact. Paul, welcome to the official Do Good Better podcast.
Well, thank you. And thank you for the great work you do. It's important work.
Well, I'm excited because I think the work that you're actually working on and the industry that you're working in is having such an amazing impact for groups of all shapes and sizes. And I cannot wait to get to why you started and what we're doing. But for the time being, if nobody knows who you are, I want to make that right. So for all of us listening, could you do like a 5,000-foot view on who you are, what you do, and why we're talking today?
Okay, be happy to do it. So I come out of the entertainment industry. We were part of a record company called Jive Records, anyone from A Tribe Called Quest to Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, and lots more for 20 years. That was sold in 2003. And then in 2005, I started Entertain Impact while still doing my music. I love music, like I'm sure a lot of your listeners do and your viewers. And so my world is divided into two. All social mission driven, though. That's really the key for me is to have impact. So on the music side, I work with a company called Participant Media, which Jeff Skoll founded, which does documentaries like the Malala one or the Obama one, American Factory that won the Oscar, as well as Green Book, Spotlight, 12 Years a Slave, all of which won Best Picture Oscars. But they're kind of serious subjects, but wrapped up in very entertaining packages. And that's kind of a lot of what I do. And also with a group out of Memphis and Atlanta called Made In Memphis Entertainment, which is a music company to give BIPOC folk opportunities they may not otherwise get just because they don't have the social capital. So that's the music side. And then we started Entertain Impact about 18 years ago. And we are a social impact agency that works with influencers on marketing and advocacy campaigns, whether we create them or they exist, but for nonprofits and foundations and purpose-driven businesses to raise awareness, support, funds, inspire action, drive programs. And that's really the 5,000 view. And I'm interested, you said earlier about the audience being small and medium-sized nonprofits and related organizations, because the book that we're going to talk about, Good Influence, which is coming out next month on February 27th, is exactly for that purpose, to give the knowledge and also confidence that people can do what I do. So I'm really happy to be here.
I'm super excited. So I want to start with this question because nobody has to do this. You didn't have to start a company or an organization that sort of matches up for nonprofit work. Nobody has to. Nobody's got to give to a nonprofit. Nobody has to volunteer. I mean, it feels really good. Make yourself, sort of live longer scientifically, but nobody has to do it. What was the spark that you said, you know what, this is I'm in a world of artists and sort of celebrity anyway. I could do this. What was the moment that said, I could do some good here and use all these skills I've acquired over the year? But what was the moment you decided to do it?
There were three, actually. One was the first week. I'm obviously from England. You can tell by the accent, but I've lived in the States for nearly 40 years, much longer than I've lived in the UK. And I was in fact, the second week we were here, my wife and I, we came over to help build up a record company, Jive Records. We went to Live Aid in Philly. We had Billy Ocean and a few other artists performing, and I saw really the power of music. So that goes a long way back. And then there were a couple of personal incidents that happened where I had a friend of mine who passed away, and his father started this foundation, DJ Martell Foundation for Cancer and AIDS. And I thought to myself, I can sit and go to these fancy galas. It's like going to a wedding, but Stevie Wonder is the band kind of thing. Or I can get off my backside and do something. And I'm not really the type that has any skill set to go and build something or mechanical. But what I can do is I can network, facilitate, produce. And I thought that's a gap in the marketplace. It doesn't exist. And I like creating things. I come from a creative background. Let's go build it. And so over the last 18 years, we've built what I call cause influence. This idea, a little bit like cause marketing, that you can use the power of entertainment and popular culture for social change. So those were really the two spark moments. And I just add to that, if I could, I've seen what an artist can do. The power of music, whether it's the song you played at your wedding, but also it can be the We Are the World song or the suicide song that was done by Logic, where you saw rates of calls into suicide lines go up and rates of suicide go down. So we can be both affected emotionally and rationally by the power of music and film and theater, books, all sorts of popular culture.
I love so much about that. Number one, I think in the nonprofit world, we're all accidental fundraisers. There's no school you go to, right? You always fall, backwards into it because you got a cause. I want to help with this. And you end up being a fundraiser because you grew or need to grow the program. And that's awesome. And I love that because that's so relatable, even, sort of build your own business, but you fell into it and you're an accidental sort of a do-gooder by just wanting to solve a problem. And I think that's such a wonderful relatability. And the other thing that I really love too is arts and art organizations have always been put on the back burner of importance in the nonprofit realm. I've called BS on this for years. I'm a theater kid. It's the thing that I used as my biggest skill set, sort of creating things since I was 12. I mean, it's just one of those things that I just loved. And to use what is typically supposed to be free, Paul, right? You should donate your time and your energy, and you're free. And to give it such a platform and to make sure that art is on the front end of being so important in whatever you are trying to accomplish to raise money for or awareness for, and using art as that vessel, I think is one of the more important and sort of awesome things that you're doing here, is reminding people that the connection you have to that song or that moment or whatever that is just so good into your ear and you remember some great things sparks goodness elsewhere too. So I really love those two pieces, especially about this.
Yes, thank you. Well, it's interesting because the arts do change culture, and culture changes behavior, and behavior changes policy, and it has a dramatic effect. And if you look really, and in the book, there's lots of stories. I work with a lot of interesting people and organizations. And it's much more of a storytelling than a how-to, in a sense of kind of, prescriptive approach. And so if you look even in the early days, the programs that first showed gay folk in the media, where they weren't accepted and still aren't as accepted in certain cases as much as I think they should be. But there are definitely mores of society that change as a result of seeing people in, whether even Modern Family these days, or Archie Bunker in the earlier days, they definitely change things. But just to give you a much more practical approach, I'm involved with a group called Elmer Philanthropies. It's one of the foundations that operates in Africa, but it also has a music foundation that's been operating for over nearly 15 years in the US. And part of what Elmer Music does is fund music programs in youth community centers around the country. It might be South Central, it might be Richmond, just above Oakland, the Bronx here. There's about 18,000 young people, 14 to 22 in those programs. And the music gets them in, and then you give them immigration, education, health, wraparound services, and you're going to get them on a better course. And so this group cohort that we call the Music and Youth Development Alliance has had some really fantastic success. And you can't say that it's just because of this, because academic success is to do with parents and teachers and all that kind of thing. But we do measure social emotional learning. because that is something very directly related. And the peer-to-peer cooperation, the confidence that people get to perform tasks and to do it well is through the roof. And music is the hook, but it's no reason why, if you program a computer for a music song, that you can't be a computer programmer for NASA. Mm-hmm. It's possible, you know. In fact, the guy who leads it, Tarek Ward, actually was was working at NASA before he joined the foundation. So it's so disheartening in a way to see how arts are just kind of a frivolous thing that people think about, when it makes the difference to so many kids. They don't have to become the next Jay-Z or BB Rexa, but what they do get out of it is the confidence to be their best self. And I would just also mention a campaign we did with the Grammys, which was to do with the lack of music in public schools, mainly people from under-resourced communities. There's 4 million people, students in the US, that don't have any music in the schools. It's outrageous in my view. And so we did this whole thing with the Grammys. We put a thing together called the Grammy Music Education Coalition. 70 organizations, arts organizations, management, record labels, etc. And as a result of this, we then did a marketing campaign with Pixar, who had a movie. It was called Coco. I don't know if you've seen that movie. It's about a really cool movie about a kid whose great-grandfather was kind of the Elvis of Tejano music, and he's not allowed any music in his home. That's weird. So it made a good fit. And as a result, we had, I think, 200,000 children got donations and guitars and programming and music in schools. And you know, that program has now been taken over full time by the Grammys, and it's expanding. So music is important. It's not just emotional, and that is important in its own right, but it has cognitive and social value that goes way beyond learning an instrument.
Oh, 100% does. I remember as an early fundraiser, I was in the Twin Cities, and there was always a group. There was a hearing aid foundation that would always bring in like massive artists. I mean, they would have people like Garth Brooks. They would have Starkey, the Starkey crew.
I know them. I've worked with them. Yeah,
right.
They're great. They're great people. Yeah.
And that was the moment where I go, oh man, so we can bring in these groups, and the more we put out there in front, all of a sudden the money gets raised. They were always like the first and number one, fundraising group in the town. And I always try to fight them for like the number one top spot. Never could get there. Still will. I mean, eventually one of these days. But it was such a wonderful thing to see. And then, of course, you're trying to experience this with other groups that are sort of music oriented or theater based, that are so absolutely important, and the expression and the availability of this for kids is just such a great bit. So if you're a small nonprofit and you're thinking like, okay, I'm a small community choir, or I'm a small community theater program, or I'm a music program that helps adapt music to kids with disabilities, and you don't think you're making a difference, no, you are. First of all, and it's really one of the unique ways to make an impact in this world, way more than it would be, some of these bigger organizations that spend so much on, sort of T-shirts, when you're getting an instrument or you're getting a music note in these kids' heads to kind of help out, everything from mental health just to making sure they can express themselves.
Exactly. And it's funny, speaking of the Twin Cities, there's a wonderful organization that was started about 8 or 9 years ago. This is an Arthur Murray Dance School proprietor who started this nonprofit to raise money for, not nonprofit, it was actually just a gala. It wasn't really a formal structure, to raise money for cancer. And she invited local celebrities, somebody who'd been on, say, Dancing with the Stars or American Idol, that kind of thing. And they did this gala, and it's now, I think, in its 7th or 8th year, and they've raised, I think, $3 million for cancer research. So that the thing I want to make clear, and you'll see a lot of these examples in the book, and of course there are the kind of the Rihannas and the big folk, and there's a lot of examples of small organizations that have made a big difference in their local community, and by having local influencers, whether it's your news anchor, or it's somebody who's Hollywood, but they come from your town, and there's a whole process by which we go through how you can do that, called the dream method, which I'll get to. You can make a significant difference to your budget, and you need that as the glucose to do your mission, right?
Yep. No.
So get a couple of influencers. If you raise a couple $100,000, there's also examples of people raising millions of dollars in the book, because it's not necessarily one size fits all in terms of your impact or whether you're international or local, but it can apply to everybody anywhere in the world. This method, and it's not just something I kind of made up. Oh, isn't that a cool idea? And it's a great acronym. It's called the Dream Method. It's 18 years in the making, and refining and proven successes over 100 campaigns. So I think it's very applicable. And the book, Good Influence, it's what I've done is I've said, here it is, A to Z, but you can dip back in. There's a fantastic way of looking at these morsels, small little bites that you can take if you're doing an ask letter for somebody, if you're doing the research to find the right influencer for you, and how you do that, and what are the important and pertinent things. And I would just mention as a caveat, none of the influencers that we work with get paid. They do it because the research is so directed to their passion. So that's something we could maybe talk about a little later.
I love that, because we talk about alignment all the time, and the single most important reason why people give, and it's the single most important reason people give their time and their talent and their wealth. So before we get into the book, because I'm super excited about this Dream Method, I'm super excited about the format and the framework that you're going to sort of lay out, but I have to ask, because I think a lot of organizations, small, medium-sized especially, get very hung up on, well, I don't want to make an ask like that. That's way out. We're way out of their league. Well, they'll never say yes. I'm wondering, who was the first influencer or celebrity? Because influencers that's a hot topic right now. Everybody recently uses that term. But 18 years ago, what was the first person that you approached and said, you know what, I got this crazy idea. I don't know what I'm going to call you. Maybe it's an influencer. Yeah. I don't know. I would love you to help with this. And who was that first person you just asked and that said yes?
Okay, well, this takes us back to that defining moment for me, the one about the son who passed away from cancer and TJ Martell. I thought, well, that would be the obvious one. And so I wanted to put together an album, and did, called Between the Covers, to raise money for them. So cover versions by say it says Mick Jagger and David Bowie, Alicia Keys, etc. All existing. I didn't record them or anything. And I thought, well, how am I going to promote this thing? And this was, 18 years ago. So I went to VH1. I didn't know the people there. And I said, would you donate the time? And I didn't know how to make a TV show or anything like that. And then I found they gave me a producer, which was lovely. And then I thought, who's going to host this? And I thought, there's a group called the Bacon Brothers, which is Kevin Bacon and his brother Michael. Michael's an award-winning, Emmy award-winning composer. They've got this cool band. I like them. Don't know them from anywhere. And so I just reached out completely cold and said, would you host it? And they said yes. And we raised, we did the program, raised $360,000 for the TJ Martell Foundation. And what's very nice is here we are 18 years later, and I'm still working with Kevin, and he has 6degrees.org, which is run by Stacey Houston. And that's doing really, really good work. In fact, he was doing a TV show where he was hosting with Eve called The Power of Music. And I had introduced him and 6 Degrees with an organization called Why Hunger, which does what it says. And they were the kind of the nonprofit partner with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. And I think they raised $7 million. So you never know if you start somewhere where it leads to. These relationships last us all our careers and lives, hopefully.
And I love the fact that you just asked. You didn't know anybody. You had an idea and a concept and were passionate about it. We were enthusiastic, and you asked and they said yes. And I just want everyone to listen. Like, this is your gateway into a lot of I could never do this. Is that threshold is easily crossed if you just ask. You never know. That's the easiest. I love that as a story, because it's just one of my favorites. Like, it doesn't matter who you are kind of thing. I got Paul to be on my show, for goodness sakes, guys. I mean, this is like, he said yes It was, and then that's kind of the power of this kind of stuff. Okay, so I want to get into the book because Good Influence, it comes out February 27th. We are going to have links to it in our show notes, so we'll mention that again too.
Thank you.
All the stuff, so everybody's going to go there. So you come up with the concept of a book. Why a book? You've already got a sort of an organization. You've got all these pieces. Why write a book? Everybody can write a book, but you actually did. I mean, these are the things that are really, fantastic about it. Why?
Well, first of all, what a pain to write this book, because I'm running a business and I'm doing my music. And so it was early mornings and weekends, but I really wanted to do it because I feel what we do, people see as kind of this insider thing, and it's not. It's really easy to do. And I wanted to give confidence and knowledge to those medium, smaller organizations anywhere in the world. It doesn't have to be US, although I'm very focused on the US, that they can do it. And here's how you do it. And this is the value of doing this particular work. So I'm trying to infuse the field. And some people said to me, why are you giving away all these, insider tips? And for me, I'm very open architecture. If there's more people doing what I do, isn't that great? Because you have more good in the world. And if there's one organization or two out of this universe that read the book and in their local community, it makes a difference, and they can service 50 more clients, or they can build this, or whatever they do, that would be brilliant. And so I'm really looking forward to a discussion with the people that read this book. They can also get it in ebook form and audio, because I know a lot of people are walking the dogs or driving and they want to listen to it. So I wanted to get it out there because I really believe passionately that people can use the information and they can improve their organizations and their missions as a result of it.
And you have something called your framework is a dream framework, right?
Yeah.
Walk us through that, as I think that's, again, we're giving away secrets here, which are not really secrets, and we're going to make the world a better place. Let's go through it. Walk us through it, and
Sure.
And I'd love to maybe kind of talk about each step too, because I think associating it with how one does it in the field and how this actually makes sense into people's brain is awesome and super fun. But take us from the top.
Sure, I'd be very happy to do it. So the basic premise of the book, just before we get to the dream method, is the influencer effect. We're all influenced by people, our parents, our teachers. Of course, they have probably the most influence. However, public figures, which is my definition of an influencer, who have a cultural impact on your desired audiences on a broad sense, meaning international or regional or local, are what I'm really talking about. And if you have a credible, authentic influencer, the impact on those very hard to reach audiences are significant. So if you take the average age of a donor in the US, it's a Beatles song. When I'm 64, that is the average age. And so we all want to get younger. We want people coming in and not just say, click like, and thinking they did something for charity or for nonprofits or for philanthropy, social justice, whatever you want to call it. We want to get to those folk. And there is research from Harvard. There's research from the Kansas Business School. There's research all over the shop that shows if you're a Gen Z, or even kind of younger millennials, you are far more influenced by social media influencers than you are by any adverts, any brands. And so you want to reach them, that's the way to go these days. There's also a second part of that, which is those same folk, and this is 65 to 75%, depending on the question, from a McKinsey study, that says, I will only buy from a company that is doing good, and I will only work for a company that I really believe in, that is doing good and authentic, not just like greenwashing, but really, really are doing the right thing. So the influence effect is really important.
Yeah, well, and they'll leave companies if they don't see that being lived out in their actions too. I've kind of come around to this. It's not frivolous hopping and job hopping. It's like trying to find meaningful work. You get the opportunity to do that the way that generations before didn't have that. So I love this is this is where a lot of small nonprofits who might not have an aging donor base, right? There might be a new nonprofit that might be trying to figure out the major mystery is Gen Z, the sort of lower, because once you got them, and you can relate to them and you can show them the impact, they're going to be there as loyal as any donor, and to activate them is tough though. So this is a wonderful little roadmap that that you can follow along for. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be by 2026. They're going to be the majority of the consumer buying public.
Yep.
So it's very important to get to them. Yeah.
Love that.
So coming to the dream method, it falls into these 5 different places. So first one is design your action plan. So it's very important that you create this roadmap of where you want to go and what your goals are, how you're going to measure it, the logistic steps. And that sounds pretty obvious, but there are a lot of organizations that we work with that don't do that. And so for us, when we get involved with folks, and we get involved in 2 ways. One, we have a few clients because I want deep, long-lasting relationships with them, and we do some, kind of pro bono work, I guess you call it, with some smaller organizations. But it's really important to know who is the audience and the segments of the audience that you're trying to reach. Because if you don't know that, you're not going to get anywhere. And so, for example, there's a huge difference between a Latinx from Cuba and one from Mexico. And even then, that's too vague. So if it's somebody from Mexico, if it's a mother with a master's degree living in Los Angeles with 2 kids who's got a job as well, that's much more defined. And so the more defined you can get the audience, the better you're going to find the right influencers to reach them. And also it depends on your goals. So we did a campaign to preserve Nina Simone's childhood home, which is in Tryon, North Carolina. And this was for the African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund, part of the National Trust. And it was a home that was bought by 4 Black artists, visual artists. And it wasn't about buying a home and turning it into a cultural center, which it will become, but it was talking about the lack of that particular narrative about preservation in Black history and kind of American history. And so there was an existing campaign. But what we did is we brought influencers and infused them into it. We got in pretty early in this campaign. And we looked at people who really liked her music, which is most people, or appreciated her civil rights work. And then we reached out to them. And I would say half of the people we had no previous contact with. We had John Legend do the press release. We had Cat Stevens get involved. We had Misty Copeland. We had her. We had loads and loads and loads of artists and actors. Guy from Greenbrook, Ali, who was the lead actor, won the Oscar for it. There were just lots of people just gravitated. And so again, it's a cold ask, and it's not that difficult to find out who their agent, or I prefer not to go to agents because they're more financially orientated, but their manager or their PR person is, or even them directly. Mm-hmm. So the first thing is with the is to design that action plan, and that particular campaign was incredibly successful. I mean, it raised much more than the goal, but mostly it attracted a Black audience, a younger Black audience that the National Trust did not have. That is not how the National Trust is perceived, and it also had a bit of a culture change. And I think that's really important, not just for nonprofits, but with companies. So, for example, I talk a lot in that early chapter when I talk about the influencer effect about nonprofits, influencers, and companies getting together, because I think that's very powerful. And I call that a multi-pact. And an example of that would be Stella Artois, the beer, with Matt Damon and Water.org. Water.org does exactly what it sounds like, and Matt Damon is very involved. I think he co-founded the organization. And you've just bought these glasses, very nice glasses, $15, and the money goes to helping build water wells in different parts of the world, primarily Africa. It raised $8 million. It gave water to $3 million, not just in 1 year, but over a 3-year period. And the head of Stella Artois marketing said, it made us hip to a younger audience. So there's benefits to everybody. No. And so why shouldn't we get those benefits with the influencer effect? And the design your action plan is the first part of that.
Well, and it really clarifies for a lot of small nonprofits who think they need to be everywhere to everyone, is niche down and find your your humans that love you more than anything are going to be the ones that do the most good, rather than spreading yourself so thin with your messaging and marketing or whatever. Get to the what the hell you're trying to do, and let's make that happen. And then let's find those who align well. And that starts with their clarifying. I love this. And again, this goes for everything you do for fundraising, nonprofits, or marketing, or talking about it. Get as defined your goals as possible and get that plan done immediately. I love this. Yeah.
Yeah, I like for the book, I know I want to go to marketing people, executive directors of nonprofits, the entertainment industry, and maybe academics, and because I think it'll be a good college course.
Right.
But I'm not trying to get to everybody else. It's too diffuse. Mm-hmm. And in fact, that leads us on to the second part, which is research, the R of the dream method. And it's interesting because diffuse is not good. So when you're researching an influencer, now that you know what your goals are, and you know basically what your target audiences are, you'll refine it over the process, but you basically know and how you're going to get to them, in theory anyway. Mm-hmm. So then you have to really research who are the right people. So this is where a direct connection comes in, and it's internet research. It's not, brain surgery or rocket science or whatever, cliche you want to use. If I have a diabetes campaign, we did one called the Diabetes Dance Dare. It was fun, actually. You danced, you dared 3 people to dance, and then you donated to diabetes. And it was really an awareness campaign, much more than a fundraising campaign. And so we went out to seed that. So we went to Usher. His son has type 1. Mark Cuban, his dad, has diabetes. Shaquille O'Neal, Camila Cabella, etc. I didn't know them. Usher I knew before from Musico, to be fair, but the others I didn't. And we had 70 of them. We had American football players. Even the way that I say American football versus soccer, from where I come from, I know nothing of them. Mm. But they were fantastically generous in terms of their time and their equity in the marketplace. And nobody charges, by the way. They have to do it because they're passionate. So there's not a cost involved in these things in the sense of a direct fee. There could be travel and expenses, but we can get to that later. And the book gives a lot of examples of how to minimize those or to deal with them. And I would just mention there is a website called goodinfluencebook.com that has a lot of free resources, because I want to give those templates about how do you ask somebody and where do you go to contact and what does an agreement look like, et cetera, et cetera. So Diabetes Dance Dare was really cool. And we, when we research someone, we look at their reputation, their connection. I mean, if somebody's mother was or father was a teacher, that has nothing to do with this campaign. If their father had diabetes, that has everything to do with the campaign. We also look at their social media following. And I just give a caveat here that social media following is not necessarily how many followers they have, although that can be great. It's the quality of the followers and if they're going to actually do something. So I think that's really, really an important distinction to make. Reputation is really important. You want somebody who's authentic and credible. And if you did a test with the front page of the New York Times or your local newspaper, and you had them as your spokesperson, how would your board feel? How would you feel? How would your clients feel? You got to make sure you're really comfortable. If in doubt, don't use them. There's plenty of others in the sea that you can find. The other thing I would say with research and with influencers generally is don't have one person. I give you an example. We did a wonderful campaign. Well, let me tell you about the Diabetes Dance campaign. We had several people. It went fantastically well. We got over 1 billion impressions. We were on Good Morning America with Kevin Hart and Kelly Clarkson, none of which we had approached. It all became very organic and went to six countries organically. And you also had what I call hidden consequences, which is the fact that the people who work for the American Diabetes Association were proud. They were recognized that their work was meaningful. And I think that's an important thing not to disregard when we're talking about fundraising and awareness. There's also employee retention, that kind of stuff. So
Well, and I love about the research too is that you're now not chasing people who have no affiliation with you as well. You're not wasting their time because if you're a program with kids and you meet somebody who doesn't like kids, I wouldn't ask that person to be an influencer for your campaign with the kids. And it saves them time. It saves you time to actually execute on those things. And again, you get the right people in the right place. And that is really where whatever you're doing fundraising and whatever you're doing marketing, whatever you're doing like sales, for goodness sakes, this is the exact way. This applies to so many things, Paul, by the way. And this is like outside. Yeah. I know you want to keep it to the old academics and executive directors and pieces, but
it can apply to a business. It totally can apply to, I mean, I hope those businesses do it for good. But if there's a lot of evidence that stock price increases with an influencer and that revenues increase and stay. There's the Tiger Woods examples of when he had that amazing comeback. There's also a negative. Kylie Jenner, for example, had two things that related to her. One was she did a Pepsi commercial where she was, I don't know if you remember this, but she was modeling, and this was right in the middle of Black Lives Matter. There was a protest, and she kind of handed the police guy a Pepsi, and life was good. The backlash on that, quite rightly, was very dramatic, and they pulled the advert. They lost lots of credibility, brand. I think people just disliked Pepsi for a while, et cetera, et cetera. And the other thing that she did, just to show the power of an influencer, was Snapchat. She said that Snapchat, that she wasn't really using it, and referred Twitter, et cetera. And it lost $1 billion overnight in stock price. So they can have a negative effect as well. But where we're going with this research is to find people who are really engaged in your cause, and you want to have a long-term relationship with them, not a one and done.
Yes,
that is really important. And then the other thing I was beginning to talk about was don't have a one. In other words, if you're putting together influencer campaign, have several for various reasons. One, reputation. If we've never had in 18 years anyone go off the rails, that's of course because of good research and how good we are, and luck. There's a smidgen of luck. Let's not forget that. But then you also need them to be available. So if we're working with Albert Pujols, who's a baseball player, and he was at St. Louis Cardinals at the time. Wonderful man. Worked in a dental campaign for us called Give Kids a Smile, which got 32,000 volunteers and 300,000 kids to get dental treatment. And he was in the playoffs. So as much as I wanted him to win, I wasn't so upset when they got knocked out, and then we could shoot out PSA with him. So that's the second part, is availability. And the third part is if you have several different influencers, and it's not that difficult to do, just got to ask, and ask the right way, which again you'll find in the book. And on the website goodinfluencebook.com, you'll see an actual ask letter that you can use. Happy to take it, adapt it. Ask me questions. My team and I will be very happy to help. If you have several people, you're going to appeal to different types of audiences that you want to reach. Some might be younger, some might be, I don't know, Dakota, where you are, in California, in different economic classes. Whatever it is that you're looking for, having a variety is really good. And I can give you an example with Mel Gibson. So when I was doing the Rotary campaign on polio eradication called We're This Close to Ending Polio, we had some amazing, and they still have, and I'm very fond of this campaign because it was very effective in fundraising terms. We had people like Desmond Tutu and Jane Goodall and Perlman, all polio survivors, by the way. But they also had people like Ziggy Marley for Africa, Psy from Gangnam Style for South Korea to raise money, et cetera, et cetera. The thing is, with Rotary, and I'm trying to find the best way to put it, is that the research was so good that despite having 80 folk, we never had one problem. And Mel Gibson, who I know there's lots of nuances about how people felt about Mel Gibson, but he had given $1 million quietly to the Rotary campaign, which was wonderful. However, when I was asked if he should be an ambassador, I said no, because at that point when he was having a drinking problem, he had made some comments that were very unsavory. And I said, why take the risk? And it turned out to be good, because he then had a second episode that I don't want to really get into. So the research that you do, and it's not difficult to go scandal on the internet and find out. Of course, you have to make sure it's real, because there's a lot of news out there that we shouldn't accept. But it's not that difficult really to do. And so I think you'd be able to find somebody that fits, is authentic, reputationally works, has a good social media following, if that's your audience. And they can do you proud, really, and wants to be involved.
And again, I love how step-by-step this is. This is not sort of like going off the rails and like, hey, just pick up the phone and call the royal family. That's not how this works, right? You build your plan and then find and do a little bit of research. And again, this is work that you have to do in order to sort of get some of the payoffs. But then, I mean, this is so good, Paul. This is just awesome. So continue. I don't want to. You're on a roll.
Well,
so good.
No, your questions are good. But talking about you can't just pick up the phone. If you're an influencer, obviously A-listers get more requests, but different tiers get requests. You might be getting 30 a day. So how are you going to cut through the clutter to make sure that that's the one that gets heard and that resonates? And the first part of it is the research, making sure they're connected. So if it was homelessness, Kelly Clarkson lived in a car for a while. She gets homelessness. It's real for her. So you have to be very specific. And then the way that you ask is really important, which is the E part of it, to educate and do outreach. It's not just like picking up the phone, because no one's going to answer. To be honest, initially, you have to write a very simple email, a very short one. The book has examples and stories and case studies about how you do it, and pro tips. There's these little boxes that say, how about this? How about that? Why don't you use this? And so the way you ask is really important. What's the headline? Sometimes you spend as much time on the headline, the subject line in this case, and you don't put attachments because they can get blocked. So you put links in sometimes, and then you just, how do you, boom, this is who we are, and this is why it matters, and this is why you're connected. Really short and succinct. You're not trying to have the whole history of a 2-hour conversation. You're just trying to get people interested. And then who do you send it to? Who are the right people to send it to? As I said earlier, agents are not the right people. PR, management, etc. are the right people. And how do you contact them? The book has free contacts, very cheap ones, very expensive ones you shouldn't use because you'll get taken. There's lots of those around. So it really guides you as to the right place to find the representative and how to make that ask that it'll be effective.
I love that. And then you have to do it, the ask. I mean, that's the other thing too. You can plan all these things you want. You can do as much research, but then it comes to this, all right, time to do it. And I love what you've done is that you've given everybody, it's very difficult to create from whole cloth, right? So a lot of organizations will freeze at the moment when they have to actually execute any of these game plans whatsoever. I've done it up to here, and now I don't feel like I'm never going to do anything. Well, that leap then becomes the difference between an organization that gets into having individuals who have very high influence and then those who just, oh man, boy, we could have had, right? And so this is the difference maker right here. This is that precipice you get to leap off of.
Well, it's interesting, in the book I talk about, I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce his name right, but there's a Chinese philosopher called Lao Tzu who says the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. And that's true, but we're the GPS that gets you there. So you could go to the book and you can find out exactly how to do this. It's not difficult, and it's very, as you said, small little pieces that you can just go. And so when you get to the A of the dream method, which is activation, that's where it's important, because the public have no idea of how you've gone out to somebody, you've asked them, you've got somebody, you're kind of like, whoa, I got somebody, great. Enjoy it for a minute, and then let's get back to work, because the effectiveness of that activation is really important. And in the chapter, that I talk about activation, I divide it into 3 parts. One is pre-production, how you get ready for it. So who's the right person to be with the influencer? Do you need to get a car? What is the run of show? All those kind of things. And, such basic advice as take a printed copy with you of the run of show, because maybe your influencer will forget, or maybe their phone's got run out of battery. Who knows? No, there's always these things that can happen. But 18 years of experience, we've had most of those happen and learned by them. So you can learn from our mistakes. So that's the pre-production. Then you have production, and we have a thing called a menu of opportunities. So we give lots of suggestions on how to put them into practice, and that can be galas, op-eds, go on TV, social media posts, which is obviously a very simple one for people to do, and probably a good one for a lot of people to start. To kick the first ball out at a soccer event, whatever it is that will help, or even go visit, say a food bank, if that's what you wish to do. So we go into very precise detail about those type of things, and again on the website you can see this menu of opportunities, and then we show how to do them. So in other words, assign someone to be with the influencer. They'd probably like to meet the executive director or the CMO. Maybe you have a board member there. The really, really practical advice, because I want it to be strategic, because I really want to look at the big picture and you and your organization doing great out of this. But I also feel like you need some hands-on advice so that you're not lost and thinking, oh my gosh, what do I do now? And so then you have the activation. And there is then the other proverb, the Zen proverb about the tree in the forest. If no one hears it when it falls, did it fall? The answer is it didn't fall, because nobody knows about your activation unless you get it out to the press, the media, and social media ASAP. And so the second part, or the third part of the book, post-production, talks about how to do that, how to deal with releases, for photos, how to say thank you. If you've given up your time for nothing for an organization, even if you believe in them, say thank you. It sounds kind of trite, but we did a campaign for Year Up, which takes kids who have got a high school diploma, haven't quite launched. Wonderful organization. It gives them internships and puts them through a college program for a year to train them to go work at JetBlue or Warner's, FedEx. And I had Damon, from Shark Tank, Damon John, who I didn't know. And I'd asked him, and it took a little while, and he was in LA for the Grammys. And so we did a whole thing at LA Community College, and he came along, and we found some shark chocolates that were shark shaped, and we sent them to him. He was touched by it. Doesn't need to be a fancy gift, but just you acknowledge that they spend their time is important.
What I love about this activation piece too is we talk a lot about clarity over clever, right? So it's very easy steps that don't confuse any of the people that you just got on board, right? Nobody wants to read War and Peace about what you do. Nope. What do I need to do? Where do I need to go? Where's my mark? The run of show for all the theater nerds is going to resonate real quick with this. But that's a wonderful thing. We talk about gratitude every single day here, and that is the most important. Donors will not give unless you say thanks. They're going to think that you just were passive about it. Oh, great. I was just another number in the whole thing. And it's helpful for you, makes them feel good. And then it makes the other person, the celebrity, the influencer, whatever, want to do more, because it gives them the same super feeling that is just small or whatever. And it's going to give them the feeling that makes them want to do it over and over and over again, whether it's with your organization or somebody else. But you're encouraged, like the same way that Paul's giving away all the secrets to make sure that everybody can have the possibility to do this. It's the same way that you're encouraging them to give back continuously as well, your organization too. And I think that's just an important thing to hammer home. It is not trite. This is the most important piece, is that thank you. So
yes, because you want to have a long-term relationship with those influencers for your organization. Exactly. And they're not commodities. They're people, they're humans exactly like us. They have choice between family time or reading or whatever they want to do. And they've given their equity in the marketplace and their time to your organization because they really believe in it. Right. So it's very important to have that relationship to build on it, so they do more. And what we do, and again, you're going to see examples in the Good Influence book, we have wrap reports. So we don't just say, oh, isn't it great you just turned up, or you did this, that, and the other. We say, here you go. This is what you did. Thank you so much. This is what happened. This was the result. I give you a kind of this is a big picture one, but it's a very simple one. It's, we did a campaign for the WHO, the World Health Organization Foundation, on vaccine equity. Those countries that wanted vaccines, that couldn't get them because the richer countries were buying them at the time. And we got a $1 million grant from the Selma Foundation. It was a matching grant. And we worked with some influencers like Elton John and Angelique Kidjo. And Elton John has a history of 30 years of dealing with HIV, and he has AIDS Foundation, so it resonated. And there was a concert in Paris and in New York, and he and Angelique Kidjo were in Paris. This was the Global Citizen Concert, and announced it from the stage. And Prince Harry and the Duchess of Sussex Meghan did it in New York, and the public responded. You know, we managed to not just raise the $1 million for the public, but about 1.5 million, and we meaning the WHO Foundation, because I don't want to take the credit for this at all. It was their work. Basically bought nearly 500,000 vaccines. So it's incredible what you can do. And there's loads of examples of people getting that A-lister equivalent who didn't know them from anyone. So it's very possible.
And again, this is
serious examples.
Back to your small and medium-sized nonprofits, when you were doing any campaign and anything, giving a report back to the donors on the impact is what's going to make them come back to you all the time. I did this. And even at the peak, I'm guaranteeing, you know, you've got celebrities who will come into something and say, wow, I did a really good job, and will not know the impact of where they came unless you tell them. They're not going to assume or do research on, like, I wonder what my appearance here at this XYZ thing did. You got to tell them, and that makes them feel exponentially better than they did when you sent them a thank you note. They got that the report thing is brilliant, though. I love that idea.
Yeah. Well, we all want to make a difference, and so you always get the, you know, oh, I feel good having gone and done something. Right. That's great, but this takes us on to the fifth part, which is the M in DREAM, which is measurement. Because I want to know, for me, did I make a difference? Did I move the needle? And of course, our nonprofit partners and foundations, that's what they're there for. And the same with influencers, and the same with businesses. They're not doing it just cause to do it. In 40 years, I've never had one person say this is great for my career. I mean, they don't want their career damaged by being associated with the wrong nonprofits. And I've got some examples in the book of what to look out for the entertainment community. But it's because they believe in the research. The research is good. So how do you measure? And there's to me, there's two types of measurement. Primarily, there's the ROI, because your chief financial officer, your finance director is going to want to know that if you do this and you spend this amount on travel or whatever it is for those activations, that there's a good return on investment. Our return, even with our, you know, we obviously charge because we're a social entrepreneurial business, but we still have to pay our people and all that kind of thing. Our return on investment is 1 to 12, 1 to 13 times. And that's and if you took the fact that our influencers do not get paid, it's actually much higher than that, and over time, much greater. So there's the ROI, and there's examples abound where I give you an example. There's a wonderful hospital in Haiti I work with called St. Damian's Pediatric Hospital, a hospital for mums and kids, founded by this amazing man, one of my heroes, called Father Rick, and who went over there to open an orphanage, saw the terrible mortality rate, became a doctor, and then opened a hospital 25 years ago, which is now run by Haitians. There's 400 people employed there. And we did the marketing for this through a grant that they got from a foundation. We did the marketing for a hospital who, if they have $10, they're going to spend it on patients. They're not going to spend it on marketing. And so as a result of this, and some very well-known people coming over, a donor saw it and donated $400,000 anonymously, which is significant in terms of the amount of people you can treat. And because those people that come to this particular hospital, which is a really high standard, don't have money. So there's all these unforeseen consequences that are usually good. So there's the kind of the ROI, and then to me there's the SROI, the social return on investment, which is the ultimate goal in my view. And so that to me falls into two areas: tactical and impactful. And so tactical would be, did we get more people on our social media following us? Did they engage? How many people added to our email list? That kind of thing. And that's needed. I don't want to minimize that. But to me, the real thing that we're there for is to change the world and improve it for everybody as much as we can. And so that impactful stuff is really important. So the Rotary campaign, and again, we can say Entertain Impact, we were directly responsible for, say, raising $3 million through influencers. We can say that we were somewhat responsible in raising a lot more than that, in several $billion dollars, with by kind of co-hosting the Gates Global Vaccine Conference in Abu Dhabi, and going around and having influencers meet with in the House of Parliament with junior international ministers, international development ministers. But when it comes to India being polio free and Africa being polio free, which it was during the 5 years that we did, we are but a grain of sand. So the key here is not to over inflate what you did. It's much better to be more modest about it and real, so that you're credible. I think that's really, really important. So the ultimate impact can be something that you can measure. So like I said before in the earlier discussion about social emotional learning with those youth community centers, that we can talk about. We can say certainly those kids do better academically and they're not on the streets, but that's not us. So we can't say that. That's their parents and the schools, and this it's like an intersectional approach, I guess is what you'd say. Right. Right. We're all connected.
I love it because, again, you can use this entire method for every appeal you write, every video that you do for a campaign, every conversation that you have. Design who you're going to meet with, do your research on when you do that, you execute, you make that ask, which is great. How do you activate them to actually have them do something that they get very good details on? And then you measure it and you get impact, and then you get to share that with the rest of the world. People will be drawn to this. And I think this is such a wonderful way to think about influencers in a way that I have never thought about it, in a way that I think organizations of every single size can now use. And my goodness, you gave us a roadmap, and it's going to be in a book out February 27th, which we're really excited about. Where can we go find this book, Paul? Because I think there's going to be so many people who get their hands on it, who work through this framework that's going to be so clear and so easy that anybody can do it, whatever organizational size. Where do we get it? How do we connect with you and your team when we have questions? Inevitably.
Okay, well, goodinfluencebook.com is the website. You can go there, and I think at the beginning of next month, you'll be able to see the book at Amazon as well. But really, February 27th is when the audio and the ebook comes out. But you can leave me a message. We have a email capture. We'll be very happy to respond and to hear. If I may, just changing the subject a little bit. The reasons that people don't do this is because they think they need an A-lister, they think they need money, or they're afraid. Bottom line is, go do it. What's the worst can happen? It won't work. It's never not worked in the 18 years that we've been involved, or we've given advice to smaller community organizations.
I couldn't wrap it up any better than that. Paul, thank you so much for being just sharing with kind of the stories. First of all, I could listen to this for 4 hours. I'm sorry we only have an hour. I apologize. That's a production error on my time. I think we need to have 5 more of these episodes. Number 2, thanks so much for your perspective and your passion about this type of work. I think this is something that a lot of people love thinking about, and you're doing it, and you're just giving this wonderful advice that's practically usable for all these small nonprofits. But mostly, thanks so much for being a guest here on the show today. If I want everybody to go click on the show notes, go get your book, get your copy, get 2, give them to a friend of yours and a board director, friends of yours, go do that. If you haven't gotten this podcast, you haven't signed up to go and listen to this every day, you should. Make sure you get on the mailing list for this, and then circle back and then go right immediately back to Paul's website and go grab another book, give your 3rd copy, and then mail it to a total stranger who needs to hear this good works as well. Paul, thank you so much. I am so ecstatic to have met with you, chatted with you. And thank you again so much for being a guest here on the official Do Good Better podcast.
It was such a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the questions. They were really thought-provoking and practical.
Appreciate it, my friend. Thanks.
Thank you.